Welcome to the Beauty Moves podcast. I am your host, Koyeta Tamara, and your guide on this transformative journey. This podcast is your ultimate destination for inspiration, actionable strategies, and real talk conversations about building a successful business while becoming the best version of yourself. We'll dive into topics that empower you to elevate your skills, grow your brand, and navigate the challenges of entrepreneurship with confidence. You'll hear from industry experts, learn the secrets behind thriving businesses, and discover the mindset shifts that will set you apart in a competitive world. So whether you're starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, you're in the right place. Together, let's take bold action and make your vision a reality. Let's make beauty moves. Welcome to a new episode of the Beauty Moves podcast. I am your host, Koyeta. It's so lovely to be back with you all and continue in our leadership series. Let me tell y'all, I just spent the last half an hour recording, and it recorded 5 minutes. So I'm going to do this again, and I hope I touch on the same great points that I did half an hour ago. So see with me. But thinking through this series, I should say, I wanted to make it perhaps like a 5-part, but looking at it, I think I could combine 2 in 1 when it comes to this episode. So I wanted to touch on toxic leadership and why your style may not produce great results, right? And also look at great leadership and great leadership being inspirational. So we'll touch on toxic first and dive into great leadership. So the point of this is toxic leadership can destroy morale and limit your team's potential. And how do you ensure that your leadership style uplifts rather than hinders? And that's super important that you consider your role in that. So I've had the experience of leading teams in corporate and business settings. And when you're in, those spaces, you develop your own leadership style. So how do you develop that style? Based on my experience, it's nurtured by different aspects of who we are as individuals. So there are cultural aspects that influences your leadership. There are learned aspects that influences your leadership style, and experience. You being and doing what you've done for a while has taught you how, has showed you how to do that. And it all plays a part in how you lead and how others see you, which doesn't mean that it's actually great. So as a leader, how do you get the best out of your team? Do you berate your team? Do you encourage your team? Or do you have takeover energy? And takeover energy is similar to the micromanaging style where you are all over them and you take it to the next level as to take over the actual project. So those are important things to consider when you're looking at your environment. Because signs of toxic leadership are micromanagement, a lack of empathy, and solely focusing on results at the expense of the team well-being. I've seen it, I've experienced it, and I'm telling you, it's not a good thing because everything will be overlooked at the expense of making sales, at the expense of making money. Everything will be overlooked, but things are breaking down in the background. But that's not as important as making money, right? So we really have to look at that. And on top of that, you cannot lead from only your cultural perspective as a leader. So culture should not be used as an explanation unless you're running a business that's only for your culture. Then proceed as usual. Do that. But if the plan is to expand and become a big global brand, you cannot lead from your culture's perspective, especially if you're hiring different types of people. The DEI. Are you hiring DEIs just to say you filled the quota? Do not do that. If you're hiring people from different backgrounds, ethnic, cultural experiences and so forth, and you're imposing your culture on them, they don't understand it because they're not from the same culture, right? They don't understand it. They don't get what is happening. And even if they may, because they've been around different cultures, it doesn't mean that's the right way to lead everyone, right? So you've got to really examine how you're doing and why you're hiring different types of people, and what's the purpose, right? What is the purpose? Because if you're not careful, people will leave, and it won't be because of the staff. It will be because of you as the leader of the organization. So you can't lead from your own cultural perspective if you want, and then if you're looking and hiring different types of people. So you as the leader has to put yourself through a process of stripping and unlearning and retraining yourself. Retraining yourself to serve a wider audience, not just from your cultural standpoint. Because good people will leave. Good people will leave an organization because of your leadership, right? And sometimes when people leave, you'll find them crying. And sometimes it's not crying because they're overwhelmed. Sometimes they're crying because they're mourning what could have been, what they could have become if they had the right leadership or guidance. What they could have become if they had the right leadership or guidance. Okay, so it's not about a pretty office, nice furniture, having nice things. You know, in a West Indian home, there's like back in the day, I don't know if it's like this now, but there's furniture that you couldn't sit on. It's nice, you just can't sit on it. It's like the same type of vibe, right? Having nice things. But it's also how you make people feel. Do they feel heard and valued? Do they feel like they're important to your organization? How do you create a great work environment? Is it is there distrust? Is there chaos? That's all coming from the head. That's why you got to really unlearn some of the negative and toxic behaviors, because you have to become accountable for the tone you set for your organization. You have to become accountable for that. And how do you foster ownership of results if it's so chaotic? Like, how do you do that exactly? Because your first sale is to your team. You need your team to buy in. They're the first ones to buy into anything. When you're hiring, you know, when you're in corporate spaces, your boss is getting you to buy in. You're getting people to buy in to that, right? When they buy in, they will give you their best, right? We need people to believe in the vision so that they invest emotionally in the success of the company, right? So once you close the sale with your employees, they will take up the torch and execute the vision with joy. But it depends on the type of workplace you're setting, right? People will stay in a bad situation for a long time, okay? Unfortunately, that's why you have people in bad marriages, abusive relationships. Why? Because people get complacent. So don't ever confuse longevity at your company as a happy employee, because people get comfortable. Why? Because the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. There's that saying. What you know is better than what you don't know. Why am I going to go out there and do and look? I know what this is like. I know how to bend and turn and flex, right? That's the thought process. So don't confuse it with that. People become immune. They become complacent. They get used to it. And as a result, you're not getting the best. It's like being on autopilot. You're not getting the best from these people. They can do the job, but are you getting their best? Probably not, right? And there might be a sect of people that do thrive in chaos. I know a couple, I know a few. That's not a huge part of people. That's not a lot of people, though. That's not a lot of people. So ask yourself this: when was the last time you audited your role in your company culture, because you got to repair the toxic behavior. When was the last time you audit your own role? I've had employees tell me whether I'm delivering good and or bad news, that based on who I am, it's made them excited to hear. It's like softening the blow based on how you lead and the type of culture you have in your workplace. You can actually be and bring light to your workplace. And based on what you're bringing, if it ain't light, it's darkness, right? And based on what you bring, you can invoke heaven or hell in that place. We spend a lot of time working, spend a lot of time with other people outside of your family structure. And now with work from home, you may not need to be around them necessarily, but you're still interacting, even if it's, virtually. We spend a lot of time working. So you want to make sure you have the right environment, right? You want to make sure you have the right environment for people to thrive in, because that is the goal, right? So I know some people want to be the boss, but big boss energy does not have to be intimidating. It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be aggressive. It doesn't have to be disruptive. It doesn't have to be cold. It doesn't have to be callous or cutthroat, demeaning or demanding, right? And as the boss, you have to be open to taking constructive criticism as well. There are things your employees can bring you to help improve your business. And I've seen it where, you've shared that information, it's been shared, and instead of taking it on and say, hey, thank you for your feedback, let's have a meeting to sit down and discuss how we could do this, there's a retaliation of even sharing the information. And I find that extremely insane. There's retaliation from a boss. And that's like, what are we doing right now? So as a boss, you got to make sure you're working on that as well. So as leaders, we also have to be open to learning how to be better leaders, to produce the best out of others. And you can't lead with the same stick. You can't treat everyone the same way. Everyone's different. So if you do that, you might not yield the same results. So that's why it's also important to know the strong suits, which I described in previous episodes of different people, so you can understand how to lead better, right? So repairing toxic behaviors includes conducting self audits to recognize toxic tendencies and foster open communication to build trust. And when you hear it, you can't retaliate. That's not the best move, right? Because you can be a high earning individual, business owner, leader, and still be miserable, still be controlling, still be mentally bankrupt, disorganized, and insufferable. And that's all going to come through in your leadership. The day-to-day movements, of how you lead and conduct yourself. It's all going to come through. People are going to feel it when they walk into an environment. That's why you can't just be concerned about money, because those things influence your workspace. It influences the longevity of your business and how others feel about you and how others perceive and talk about your business in the real world. You got to know if you're creating a chaotic environment. People are talking about it. You may not know about it, but they be talking. The streets be talking, okay? So you really got to be careful about those type of things. So how then do we look at or create great leadership? How then do we do that? Because great leadership is inspirational. You're inspiring people to believe in their potential even when they can't see it for themselves. Have you ever met someone that's moved you to the point of action? Like something they said or did, or maybe even their aura or countenance stirred something inside of you that made you want to be better, do your job better, take action on something that's going to make you better. Have you ever had that experience? I have. And it's mind-blowing, and that's the type of leader I want to be, right? Someone that causes someone to take action, right? Because the ripple effect of inspirational leadership moves your business forward. People can see it and feel it when they walk into the room. You know, there's optimism amongst your staff. They're themselves. There's authenticity in it. They're authentic, right? Your authenticity, getting stuck on that word, is inspiring others to be themselves and to lead and to be great. And that's ultimately what you want it to feel like. When you're leading with the toxic leadership style, you know, your team's low on morale. And you gotta evaluate your own steps. So you gotta recognize a team member's contribution during team meetings to inspire others. You gotta step back, look at your own issues, work on them, and recognize your team for the work they do. Take your team with low morale and inspire them by setting a shared vision. Have them buy in and offer consistent encouragement and celebrate every small win. Like, it all matters. It all matters when you're leading. People want to hear great job. You know, that was awesome. And I'm that type of leader where I encourage, because why not? Because it helps others lead. It helps others feel good. I want people to feel good when they come around me. I want people to feel moved and like, oh my goodness, that experience with her like is life changing. I want people to feel seen. So let's look at questions. So, are your behaviors or your leadership style holding your team back? Ask yourself that. And how can you prioritize emotional intelligence over quick results? Because toxic leadership can destroy trust, but great leaders build it. And how do your actions inspire trust and motivation in others? Because if we're trying to build inspirational leadership, ask yourself that. And when was the last time you told your team why their work matters? They want to feel like they matter, like what they're doing is important. Because inspirational leaders show what's possible and empower others to achieve it. They don't tear others down. They don't throw a fit. Like, this is not one of the movies that you see where the leader is throwing things all over the place and you're ducking. Like, we're not doing that. If that's what's happening in in your work environment, I encourage you to grab your bag and go. I encourage you to grab your bag and go. I know the economy is different. I know things are looking they're looking interesting. That's the best word I could use. But I'm not going to encourage you to stay in an abusive work setting. Because if that's where we are, you gotta look elsewhere, because that's not healthy. If your work environment leaves you feeling sad, depressed, we really got to take a look. So that's why your leadership matters, because you're influencing your staff. You're setting the tone. And if your business is going to be something that you want other people to buy into and to last, it starts with you. Truly starts with you. So that is the last of my leadership series. I hope you guys find it useful. Please be sure to share what you've learned. I'm going to be most likely setting up some questions, so be sure to answer them and just let me know how you felt about the episode. And we're going to be moving on, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Beauty Moves podcast. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment, as this helps improve my ranking. Take care. Until next time.